Welcome to Wild and Exposed, your number one adventure, nature, and outdoor photography podcast. Wild and Exposed is hosted by Mike Amaro, Ron Hayes, Jason Loftus, and Mark Raycroft. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome to another episode of Wild and Exposed. We've got a Western Rockies episode today. We are joined by, Jason Loftus and myself, Ron Hayes. And tonight we're joined by Wyoming photographer Steve Mattheis, who finds his home over on the west side of the state. I'll let him describe that. But welcome to the podcast, Steve. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm psyched to be here.
So for those of you that don't know, Steve is the great gray owl whisperer and, the gray ghost whisperer, whatever you want to call it. He has got some incredible images of those owls over in that area, and not in one particular area, but all over the Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Park ecosystems, the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, I guess I should say. Steve, so we're going to make a quick introduction, and this is one of those questions that I told you we weren't going to tell you we were going to ask. But
Okay.
right out of the gate, what is your favorite ever outdoor experience? Doesn't have to be photographic, just outdoor.
Oh boy. I think I have to go to experience number 2, because number 1 is, kind of naughty, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, this is Wild and Exposed.
That's what you get for putting me on the spot like that,
I like it. I think he just got us back, Ron.
I think he did.
Yep. And so I will go. I'll go straight to, you mentioned great gray owls, and that's a really hard question to answer on the spot, which is, I'm sure, why you guys do it, because so much amazing stuff is happening out there all the time. And, doing what I do and what you guys do, we put ourselves in a position to see a lot of really cool stuff and experience neat things. So that's a tough question. I'd have to sift through the memory banks, but you mentioned great gray owls right out of the gate there, and they're my favorite photography subject. And one particular experience with the owls stands out to me as my favorite experience. And it happened to include some of my favorite photos as well. The short version of the story, I could go on and on for an hour about it, but I won't. But the short version was, it was an experience I had with a pair of courting owls that I was working on my great gray owl book for years, and I kept postponing wanting to get it put together and finished and published because I didn't have a photo of great gray owls copulating. And for whatever reason, I felt like I needed to have a photo of that, just for the natural history of the birds. And so I just decided to dedicate an entire spring season just to getting one photo of great gray owls copulating. And so I got to know this pair really well, and I got to know kind of their courtship routines and some of the cool behaviors that they were doing. And it was just over and over and over. I'd go out there every morning and every evening and spend time with them and just try and be in the right place over and over. And then one night I was out there in the afternoon, and I found one of the owls, and just kind of spent time just sitting there waiting. And then the male, it turned out the male flew in eventually, and they did some courtship stuff. Typically the male flies in and presents the female with a beheaded gopher, which then she swallows whole. And then, there's some, I don't know why they bite the head off, but
that's very romantic.
Yeah, it's kind of hot, but she, once she starts accepting these as, I think he's proving that he's a good provider and that he can hunt for her and stuff. And I'd watched this happen a dozen times or more over the previous couple of weeks, and I just kept kept at it, wondering, when is they going to copulate, or am I missing it? Or is it happening only in the middle of the night? Or, all those thoughts of doubt start running through your head. But I watched him present this gopher to her, and the light was fading, and she was sitting on this magnificent perch where I was just like, oh, please, please let it happen right here on this perch. The background was great. Everything was so nice. And he presented it to her, and then he flew off just like every other time. And I was like, man, I guess I got to go. It was getting late, and I probably only had 10 minutes of shootable light left. And I got my tripod. I had the 600 f4 on there, and threw the tripod over my shoulder, and I just walked about maybe 10 yards away. And I just glanced back at her, and she was looking straight at me. And I was like, I'll just hang in here just a few more minutes. So I set the tripod right down where I was. So it was a little different angle than it was before, and set back up. And then, I don't know, 60 seconds later, I heard that low booming great gray owl, call from the forest. And I thought, oh, maybe he's going to come back in. And sure enough, I could see him flying through the forest, and he came around behind her. She's looking straight at me, and that owl flew in, the male, and landed on her back and copulated, wings flailing. She's looking straight at me. Beautiful background, beautiful perch, not any piece of twig or clutter or anything in the way, nothing in the background. It was like perfect magic. And he, his beak was all bloody from the head he just bit off the gopher. And, it lasted just a few seconds, and then he flew off into the woods. And, that was just everything that could have possibly gone right went right. And, I would have been thrilled with just any picture of great gray owls copulating. But to get I just couldn't have planned it out better. And everything was perfect. And that was just one of those magical moments where put in the time, you visualize what you want, and then bang, one day it happened. And it was like just such a relief. So I could finish the book, first of all, but And that was just one of those experiences that I've seen him copulate since then a few times, but never in anything clear-sighted, never in anything remotely good for photography. So, it was just one of those times where everything just aligned, and the universe gave it to me that day. So that's the first thing that comes to mind on that question for sure.
So for the listening audience and those that may not know, what is copulating?
Well, that's the great gray owl version of what I was trying to tell you the first story about.
The other best story.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's excellent. No, for those that don't know, you can look it up.
Yeah.
Well, they have
in
weird...
Steve's book.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I don't even know. Great gray owls, I think most birds have a non-typical genitalia, I guess. Right. And I don't even know how you pronounce that. Cloaca or something?
Cloaca, yeah.
You guys know that?
I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah. So they just kind of bump those together when he climbs on her back there. But it was just amazing to watch, his talons in her back and the wings flailing, and he's biting her in the eye and stuff. It was so incredible.
That's a neat story.
Gopher beheader.
Yeah.
And to get that first of all, to see it, period. Again, like you said, the time that it takes to catch those kind of behaviors, but then secondly, to catch it on a nice perch with a clean background. And I'm guessing if it was toward the end of the day, you had decent light, or was the light gone and you were just shooting low light?
It was kind of right in that perfect zone where at the time I was on a Nikon D4S, so really good low light capability on that camera. The sun had gone down, so everything in the forest, how it just gets that nice soft, and the background was perfect, just dark conifer. Mm-hmm. So everything just was perfect. And, another 10 minutes later, and I would have been maybe up at ISO 12,000 or something, which still would have been fine. Mm-hmm. But I think I was at ISO 3200, and on that camera, it's a piece of cake. So it worked out great.
That's incredible.
So Steve,
Yeah,
tell
it's
us.
just
Oh, sorry.
just good.
Go ahead,
No,
Jason.
you're good. Just good clean living, right, Steve? That's what. No, you're good. Just good clean living, right, Steve? That's what universe handed that one to you.
I guess so.
No, I mean, real quick, just because we talked about this on the show many times, and just that dedication you put into that, getting that one shot, right? I mean, you had a purpose behind it, right? It wasn't just for your own self satisfaction. I'm sure that was part of it, but with the goal of trying to get that to complete your book, but then to put in that time, and I don't know, do you have an idea of how many total mornings and evenings or days total that you kind of spent out there that spring trying to capture that image?
Just that spring, I was probably out there every day for 3 weeks, twice a day, which, in the grand scheme of things isn't that much. But when you think about, I'd been trying to get that photo for years, not to that level of I'm just going out every day just to do this, but I'd been trying for years to not only see that, but to photograph it. But yeah, and I generally don't work that way. To be honest, I generally kind of go out there and try and have an open mind to, whatever is happening out here today, I'm going to try and make the most of it, and not really narrow down my focus too much to the exclusion of other things. But this was one of those few times where I just excluded everything. I was like, I'm going to miss grizzly bear cubs. I'm going to miss whatever I need to miss in order to get this photo.
Yeah.
And luckily it worked out, because sometimes you go through all that and it still doesn't even work out.
Sure.
When you have a passion project like that, though, it's a little bit easier to give up some of those other things just to bring that to conclusion. And it's easier to say when it works out.
Definitely.
9 years of over on this side of the state trying to get swift fox feeding the kits, and then all of a sudden it happened, and it happened like all night. They were bringing prairie dogs in, brought a bull snake, a bird, and it just happens all the time now. And I guess once you pop the cork on that behavior, I guess it's easier to see.
Yeah.
When you're not stressed about it. But
that's awesome.
So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into wildlife photography? I mean, you grew up you live in a good area, fantastic area, the best part of the state. But what put a camera in your hand, and when?
Well, it's I don't really have a magic moment. I kind of do, but so I was born and raised here in Jackson, and lived here most of my adult life. And I've always kind of, as a kid and as a young adult, I always just ran around with a camera, a little, even just one of those little like Kodak disposable film cameras that they used to make, and then when the first like little point and shoot digital cameras came out, I always ran around with one of those. And I don't know, I just enjoyed taking pictures, but I never studied photography or took the time to even understand what shutter speed and aperture or anything did. I just would point the camera at something and push the button and either think, oh, that turned out nice, or no, that didn't turn out good, and move on to the next one, kind of a thing. So I don't really, I put together some photo books from some like vacations we'd gone on and stuff like that, but I never really had any true interest in photography until my wife at the time, when she got pregnant. I was like, God, I need to learn how to use a camera better so I can take pictures of my kids. And so at that point, I went and bought at the time it was, a reasonably entry-level kit. It was I don't remember. It was one of the Nikon entry-level things with a kit lens. And I just decided I was going to take grab a couple of books off of Amazon, beginning photography books, and take some time to read those and just try and understand photography a little bit better with this. I just wanted to take pictures of my kids, and had no intention of, this becoming my life or anything. It started real innocently, but, and then when you grab a photography book, the first thing you realize is there's a lot more to this than just pointing it at something and pushing the button. And so I needed to practice. And so I would practice, taking pictures of my dogs and just stuff around the yard. And uh, that ran its course pretty quickly. So, here I am in Jackson, Wyoming, and like, oh, I need to practice. What can I go photograph today? Well, there are those moose running around out there. I saw those when I was driving to work the other day. I'll go take some pictures of them. Kind of a thing.
Whatever you want.
Yep. Yeah. And so literally that's kind of the how it started, where I needed something to photograph just to practice and get better. And of course, then I started going out and spending time out in nature and with wildlife, and kind of reacquainting myself with, this valley and the national park. Because, when you grow up here, it's different. We all grew up here, and this is our norm. This is our baseline. And we think every place is like this. And we think, I remember in high school, we were all like, Jackson sucks. I can't wait to get out of here. And, it's just one of those things, you take it for granted. It's there. And I took all that stuff for granted. I'd see a grizzly bear run across the road, and I'd just drive right by and be like, yep, there's another bear, and, go about my day. And so, once I started getting back out there and practicing with the camera, it's really I think the most amazing thing happened in that I started to reconnect with nature and with this valley in particular. And I really started to experience it almost like somebody who's just coming here that's never been here before. And, I see people look on people's face when they, their first trip to the Tetons, and they're like, oh my God, this place is amazing. And I never felt like that until I started photographing. Mm-hmm. It just totally changed my perception of this, home, this place where I lived that I'd taken for granted for so long. So it really just kind of took hold there and became just something I wanted to experience every day. And at the time, I owned a bar and restaurant, and my schedule was such that I didn't have to be in to the office till like 10:30. So I could go out like every morning for sunrise and shoot for a couple hours and then be into work. And so it just became a normal routine to get away from the chaos of bar and restaurant life and getting out and being alone in nature and, watching some wildlife do some cool stuff and making some nice photos. And so it just became one of those things where every single day I would find a way to practice, get out there and have a good time. Yeah.
And we're, Jason's in Utah. We're all fortunate to be in the West, but I can't imagine being in Jackson Hole. I mean, even if you went to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, you get out and have a pretty good shoot in the middle of the summertime when the sun's coming up earlier, and be back to town in time to kick it off.
No doubt. And a lot of the local photographers do that. Mm-hmm. All these people have such different diverse jobs, and it's just so convenient. You can get up early and, be at the field at 5 and back to town by 7. And, you'd be like, oh, I photographed 4 moose this morning before work.
Right.
Sweet.
So how long ago was that, if you don't mind me asking?
That was just over 11 years ago.
Okay. And in that time, the last 11 years, you've done a book on the Great Grays. You've kicked off a pretty successful YouTube channel. And then you're now leading tours, correct?
That's true.
On top of that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how life changes.
So are you doing it full time now?
Yep, that's all I do now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm lucky to be able to make it work. It's a tough, I think, I don't know that there's an easy way to make a living, but I'm sure for some people there are, but it's a unique thing that I'd never experienced. And prior to my bar and restaurant gig, I'm a mechanical engineer by education. and I worked as a professional engineer for over a decade as well. So I know what it's like to have real jobs, and I don't have a real job right now. That's for sure. It's pretty great.
Well, it makes you even appreciate it even more, right?
Yep, for sure. Yeah, it's been my full-time gig for 3.5 years now, I guess.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
And what was the tipping point for you? Because we have people ask all the time, how can I do this full time?
I wish I knew. Yeah. I still don't. I still am like every day I'm like, oh God, it's gonna all come crashing down. What am I gonna do? You know, it does feel kind of surreal. So I definitely I wish I had it figured out to where I could give some good advice to people, but I just don't. I feel like I'm winging it, just like a noob. Um, but it's a for me the workshops are key in that I can do them from home. I do a couple of offsite. I travel. I do a Yellowstone winter workshop that got canceled this year, and Africa workshop that also got canceled this year. But for the most part, it's private one-on-one workshops here in the Tetons. And so I'm super grateful, and that's a unique situation that most people, if you live in a magic place like this, you can pull that off. But not many places have year-round good nature photography opportunities like we do here. So it's pretty unique just being here that I can pull that off.
Now, what about? So I was looking at the image behind you. It's a
Oh yeah,
black and white image of a giraffe. How often have you been to Africa, or how many times?
just one.
Oh, really?
So yeah, that was my first trip. Happened last winter.
Mm-hmm.
Last February. We were there for 3 weeks, and I co-led a workshop there with Sue Cedarholm, and she'd been to Africa, I don't know, a couple dozen times. So she's super experienced there. She has co-led workshops there for, I don't know, a decade or more. Just really deep knowledge of and she's a local here in Jackson. So
She
we
works
got
down at the
together.
gallery, doesn't she?
She does. She works for Tom. Yep.
Yep.
And so she's been doing those trips with him for a long time, and he's not doing them anymore. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I think he wasn't last year or whatever, but I don't know what his plans are. But at any rate, we got together to put a trip together last year, and that was my first time there. She'd been there a bunch of times, so she handled all the logistical stuff, and I got to teach and make sure everybody was coming away with the images that they were hoping to get. So it was incredible. Have you guys been?
Not yet.
It's on the short list.
But I think we all have a long short list.
Yes.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, I was absolutely floored. I live in a place where we have such great access to amazing wildlife. And I got to Africa and I was like, what is this? I mean, it was like the best day in the Tetons. You spend 80% of your day looking for something good, and then 20% of the time actually working on it. And, I got to Africa and it was like the opposite. It was, you find 20% of your time, finding something good, and then 80% of the time shooting. And so that was pretty different. And, having different species and different behaviors and stuff was amazing. But the amount of photography you get to do there was kind of mind blowing to me, for sure.
Did you have some time? Obviously, you were able to take some of your own images while you were there. Did you have enough time to do that while you were teaching as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just goes on and on and on. I mean, there's just so many photographic opportunities that are happening all the time. It's not like you're going to come across one good thing today. It's like you find one good thing, you help the people that you're with, and then 5 minutes later, something else cool happens, and now they've got it figured out, and they don't need your help for this shot. Or it's just different. You just get so many more opportunities there.
Yeah, I need to go for sure.
Yeah, that's so. I really want to go to some of the areas that most people don't go and get in the Ethiopian highlands. Um, obviously would love to see the migration and experience that. But that's one thing that I was going to ask you is, given the biodiversity of the valley or Jackson Hole area or greater Yellowstone ecosystem as a whole, what was it like going to Africa? Because it's you could drive a few miles and be in a totally different set of animals, I would think.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. Like there's the Ngorongoro crater in Tanzania is like this amazing crater, and don't quote me on the number here, but I think it's a crater that's about 10 miles in diameter. So not very big.
Mm-hmm.
That's big, but it's not that big. But you've got I don't know how many prides. There's several prides of lions in there. There's thousands of prey animals everywhere. There's leopards in there. It's like there's elephants. Everything that you think of from Africa is running around in this 10-mile diameter crater. And there's like a huge lake in there. And then there's like these deserty areas. There's like a creek that runs down to the lake. There's like these kind of grasslands like you think of in Africa. There's like these rocky outcroppings. It's just in this 10-mile radius.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh my God, what do you want to do next? Like you look across the crater with your binoculars and you see lions chasing some zebras around and you go, wow, let's run over there, and you drive over there and they're chasing. And then, I mean, it's just, there's a rhino over there and there's lions behind us. And, that was our big dilemma in the crater one day was I'd never seen a rhinoceros before. And we had this rhinoceros in a beautiful setting. And then our other vehicle was like, hey, we got a pride of lions hunting over here. And I was like, rhino or hunting lions? They're like, that's only 4 minutes away. We could be there in no time. What do we do here? But that's the kind of, dilemma you're in over there. It's like you have to pick your battles. Which one do you want more?
So what won?
Well, we did both because they're so close. So, fired off a few frames of the rhino, and then we went over and with the lions, and then the hunt petered out. And so then we zipped right back to the rhino and got some more images of the rhino. But, how can you do that? It's crazy.
What a good problem to have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So on a trip like that, Steve, and you only being able to shoot part-time because you're helping to educate the people that are going along with you, how many images did you still come back with?
Well, I stopped counting. I had a grand vision at the start of the trip to log all of my images just to find out how many I shot during the trip. And it got out of control in the first 3 days. We went to Amboseli and there were baby elephants everywhere. And I fell in love with baby elephants. And I'll bet I shot 10,000 images of baby elephants in the first 2 days. And I was like, forget it. I'm giving up now. I'm not even counting anymore.
Yeah.
I'm done. I don't know. It was a
lot. Trip like that, you might start looking through the archives a couple years later and find shots that you didn't even know you had.
No doubt. Yep.
That's the beauty of that. So you're a Nikon shooter, and what system are you shooting now?
Well,
within Nikon, have you switched?
Yeah. No, I haven't. I've been Nikon since, so as I mentioned, I bought a Nikon DSLR, entry-level DSLR, and shot with that for a long time. Right now, I am shooting with a D850, a Z6 II, and a Z7 II. And I want to be fully into mirrorless, but I'm not finding that the Nikon mirrorless systems can do everything I want them to do at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So the D850 is still in the bag, and it's a wonderful camera. I mean, what is that thing, like 4.5 years old?
Yes.
And it's still just makes amazing images. And I mean, you think back to 4.5 years ago, and that thing was such a groundbreaking camera that it's still going strong. And it's such a great camera. But I'd love to get rid of it, just because I like some of the advantages that mirrorless have. But the Nikon mirrorless just aren't there yet for me, to where I'm comfortable ditching the D850 yet. So I'm holding out hope for that mythical beast, the Nikon Z8 or Z9 or whatever it's going to turn out to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you guys want to talk about gear for a few minutes?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we always like talking about gear.
So we both shot the D850, still shoot it, but I switched to the R5. Well, Jason got one too. We both did.
Yeah, I still hold on to my 850. It's my main go-to camera with my 500 millimeter, and it's my favorite setup. I just have not found anything that competes with it still, and that's including the R5 with the 1:500, RF lens. And I tried the Sony A7R4 with the 2:6 for a while, and I just really, really hope Nikon can pull it through, because I'm a huge Nikon fan. But I'm a little worried right now. And then listening to your review on your YouTube channel kind of, confirmed some of my concerns that I'd kind of been hearing, and why I haven't purchased one at this point. But sorry, Ron.
No, that's spot on.
Yeah. Well, I finally, I haven't tried an R5 yet, but I hear lots of people, like you guys included, talking about the R5. You guys have talked extensively about it in the podcast. And before I put out this review on the Z7 II, I felt like it would kind of be a disservice if I hadn't used one.
Sure.
And to see what the competition is doing. And so I rented one and took it up to Yellowstone for a week here about 2 weeks ago. And I was ready to switch. It really, there is something really special about that camera. And the autofocus, I didn't find the image quality to be anything special. I mean, it's special, but I've been shooting with the D850 for 4.5 years, and I don't see that it's special compared to that.
Tough to beat.
Yeah. It does not. It doesn't compete with the 850 stills. I'm I'm the same way. But
yeah. But there is no doubt. I rented the R5 in that 100 to 500 millimeter zoom, and I have nothing but great things to say about both of those pieces of gear. They worked really, really well. They weren't perfect. That autofocus system, the only real flaw I found is it really struggled in heavy snowfall, which most cameras do.
Right.
But I had kind of high hopes that once it locked onto that eye, which it's so good at finding an animal's eye, I was like, maybe it'll lock onto that eye and that heavy snowfall won't mess it up. But I found that it really did still kind of mess with it. But
the day that I met you, that's what I was trying to find out. Just how tight that would lock on a subject, and it didn't at all. And so I finally, once I got sharp focus, I finally just shut the autofocus off and just videoed manual.
Mm-hmm.
But those heavy flakes definitely catch the autofocus sensor and throw it off. And so does a blade of grass as far as that goes. Until you get it dialed in, get your settings locked down the way you want them. I had a moose up near Teton School of Science, and one blade of grass kept throwing the focus off. So I hit about 50% because the wind was blowing. So there are definitely some negatives, but there are a lot of positives, especially if you're a hybrid shooter and you do video as well as stills. And you've got to be now, right? If you're running your YouTube channel, let's talk about that for a minute. And I've seen you have some guest YouTubers that have pretty successful channels of their own, even one guy out of Florida.
Yeah, Mark Smith.
Yeah, Mark came up and shot with you.
Yeah, we were able to find a great gray owl for him that day too. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That was cool. Um, yeah, hybrid shooting is important to me, really just because of the YouTube channel.
Hmm.
I'm not like out there shooting and hoping to sell some footage to BBC or anything like that. So I don't have I don't care about 8K. I hardly care about 4K. All my YouTube I publish in 1080. It's nice sometimes to shoot it in 4K so I can crop in on it.
Hmm.
But my requirements for video aren't like I don't need the best stuff. I don't shoot N-Log. I don't do that stuff. But what I do need is a way to quickly just switch back and forth
Right.
between video and stills, and I need a way to shoot through the viewfinder instead of, because I run and gun and I handhold a lot. So majority of my video footage I'm shooting handheld, and trying to shoot that off the back LCD screen handheld, forget it.
Right.
So I need mirrorless to be able to shoot through the viewfinder and handhold, and both Nikon and that Canon R5 is super easy to just bang. You hit that button and you're recording. And Nikon, you have to flip a little lever, but it's so quick and easy that's an important thing that for me, I need that to be able to do that for my YouTube channel.
Now the Z7 II, the 6 and the 7, do they have in-body stabilization as well as stabilization with the lenses, or is it just your lens stabilization?
No, they have the IBIS as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So they work great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can handhold it and get, reasonably good footage, certainly good enough for what I use it for. And, I can track, an elk walking across the field or whatever. It's no problem. So they were great for that. The problem that I have with the Z system right now is the inconsistency in the autofocus. That's the big one. And there's a few little nitpicky kind of ergonomic things that they're not letting us do, some button customization that I'd like to see. But I could live without that. But the inconsistency in the autofocus is why I'm still holding on to that D850, because that thing's rock solid.
So the D850 is very tough to part with. I just had a guy call me this week, actually, and I wanted to offer it up there, but I've got a trip coming up to the interior Yellowstone, and I kind of want both systems for that as well.
So. Yeah, I'm actually kind of sad right now. I went out over the weekend to shoot some waterfowl, and I might cry. No, I'm just kidding. I had my 850 and my 500. It was in my bag, and I was on a four-wheeler, and I got off the four-wheeler to help my buddy with something, and as I was sitting there, the machine was running, the bag, and dumb me, it rolled off the seat and landed on the foot peg and then rolled onto the ground. So it wasn't really a very far fall, but it was enough that it busted the foot of the ring, right? The lens ring, the hook it to the tripod. It busted that down at the base, so it was basically useless. So it's literally right now at the shop. I just mailed it back today, and I'm afraid I'm not going to have it back before our Yellowstone adventure, but that's tough. This is the first time I've had to do anything with that lens or that body, and it's really hurting me. It's starting to be, it's like, man, that's my go-to. I feel naked without it.
So you've got the place right across town. You can buy a tripod collar.
It's not no. On that 500, I don't know how to replace it myself, because it's not one that you can just screw apart and put back on.
Oh, it's not just the foot.
On the 500, or I don't know, the 600 is probably the same. Mm-hmm. It's not just the foot, it's the actual ring.
I gotcha.
So anyways, I don't know how to replace it. Anyways, yeah. And
sandbagger,
I wanted to check it.
You're going to be a sandbagger.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Nice call. But your point, Ron, right? You had somebody offer you the money for your 850, and honestly, the longer we hold on to them, the less they're going to be worth if you are going to try to dump them and switch systems or whatever you decide to do. So it is a kind of a hard thing to do, but I do not have any plans of getting rid of my 850 anytime soon. And I'll be honest with you, whatever they replace it with, like, because I do hear that there's rumors of the 860 or whatever it's going to be. I will probably buy one of those just because I've had so much success with my 850, and love it so much. And then I might part with the 850, but we'll see.
Yeah. So Steve, have you given that any thought? Sticking with DSLR or just jumping into the mirrorless?
I'm ready to go 100% mirrorless when it's ready. I for the last few years I've been running around with a pair of D850s and a Z7.
Mm-hmm.
So I sold one of the D850s. So I'm down to one D850 and then a Z6 II and a Z7 II. And I think I'm done with DSLR. The hybrid shooting is so important. Right. And for me, the things that I shoot, that's certainly not the case for everybody. But yeah, I'm ready to just go all in, but I'm not quite there, and then now we got to throw like that R5, after using it for a week in Yellowstone, I was like, geez, I should get an R5 and that 100 to 500 and maybe a 600 F4. So I was like, oh God, how could I make this work? Well, to be completely honest with you, what stopped me from doing that is that the Canons zoom the opposite direction as the Nikons. And when you spin that sucker the wrong direction and you miss a photo because of it, it's just maddening. And I finally, that was enough. I mean, that's how, when things are happening and you have a split second to make that shot, and that happens all the time out here. If you just move that zoom direction the wrong way because that's the way you've done it for the last 10 years, you just missed the shot. And I was like, that's just as bad as having an inconsistent autofocus.
Right.
So I talked to myself out of it because I was just like, I might be able, like, if I wanted to do that, I would have to commit 100% to Canon, and I would have to spend the next year retraining my brain. And I'm not ready to do that yet. So for me, that was a big consideration. And a lot of people maybe aren't as stuck in their ways as I am, that they can make that transition more seamlessly. But boy, I really struggled with that. And I just don't want that to be the cause of me missing photos out there. So, yeah. Sony zooms the same direction as Nikon, right? Oh boy, did I just open a can of worms?
You did. You did, because they've kind of stayed out front too.
Well, yeah, they just announced that new monster A1 beast, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So that honestly has me a little more. The price tag scares me, but the specifications and the zoom direction get me a little more excited. We'll see when it comes out if it performs the way that they say it's going to. Because man, they have some
if
lofty.
The focus is as good as their advertising, or even half as good, to be honest, because it's supposed to be twice as fast as the A9, which is super fast focusing camera, and it tracks like perfectly. Yeah. So I don't know. I gotta quit talking about it because.
Because now that my biggest hurdle was the zoom direction on the Canon system, I was like, nope, I can't do it because of the zoom direction. And now I'm like, well, Sony, they zoom the same direction. What's my excuse now? And
mm-hmm.
It's a $6,500 excuse plus a $13,000 600 f4.
Yeah.
Replacing all my the PF lenses, those Nikon,
mm-hmm.
the 300 PF and the 500 PF, they don't make anything like that. I love those lenses. They're so good for getting out and hiking. And
I've never had the opportunity to use the PF, but that was one thing that I was looking at. If I would have stayed with Nikon, for sure, I would have picked up the 500. And I heard that they are actually, they've secured patents for a 700 PF. So whether or not that comes to fruition, that would be the perfect lens to go out and photograph grouse or owls or any birds. I think one of the best kept secrets in Jackson Hole is the fact that you can, if it's a bad day everywhere else, you can come back to the visitor center and there's about 20 species of birds right there behind the visitor center in the catwalks. And there's some
true.
really interesting ones, common yellow throats, cinnamon teal.
And we get all kinds of stuff. We get otters back there in that pond.
Oh, really?
Trumpeter swans. Yeah. Can be really good back there. So, I don't know. I think the bottom line is that cameras are such a personal thing, that like that R5 and that 100 to 500 lens is just wonderful and tack sharp and super versatile. The animal eye tracking is amazing. But then a guy like me goes, no, I don't want it because it zooms backwards,
Yeah.
And people are like, well, you're a moron. That's a dumb excuse. But then I go, well, I'm a moron then, but that's what I need. I need it to zoom this way.
You've got to be able to count on muscle memory when you get out there and something good's happening.
Yeah.
Well, and it is hard. I mean, I can attest. I've shot 3 different systems in the last 2 years. My normal Nikon, which I've been shooting from the beginning, and then the Sony system, and then now the R5. And it is not easy to switch back and forth. Matter of fact, there's a period when I switched to that handheld, the R5, my handheld. It is. I have to think. Have to think about those things that you just mentioned. And as a matter of fact, it's not set up exactly the same as my Nikon, so I still have to think about, which back button am I pushing and what is it doing and all that stuff. So there's definitely something to that, and because of that, I probably pay the price and miss some shots. To your point. So, but it's a trade-off.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. It seems like it should be real easy, but when there's something amazing happening right in front of you and the blinders go on, it's like things just have to be second nature or you're going to miss some.
Yeah, agreed.
That's a fun thing. A lot of people, and Mark would be one to say that he's never had a desire to go to Grand Teton or Yellowstone just because of the number of people. But one of the fun things that I find when I'm over that direction is that you can find people that you don't get to see that often, get a chance to visit with them, and then when it's game on, everybody just kind of locks in and goes their separate ways and does their own thing, and you still have the opportunity to be creative and do what you want to do in those circumstances and with all of those opportunities, and then you can visit again. It's a unique place to photograph as well.
Yeah. It is. There's a lot of different ways to photograph here. There's you can go hiking to your heart's content. You can just stay on the roads and find amazing things to photograph. You can work on landscapes all day, every day. You can work on wildlife all day, every day. It's like, and that's why it's so amazing place to teach, because
for sure.
I get to ask people like, what do you want to work on? And I can generally find, if they say I want to photograph great gray owls, I have a really hard time. I can't promise anybody anything like that. We find them on occasion, but if somebody's willing to have an open mind, we're going to find stuff to shoot. And it might not be the great gray owl or the grizzly bear with cubs that they wanted, but it might be. You just never know. But yeah, just the diversity here is incredible.
Absolutely. Now, for you, and being spoiled, living there, what is the photo opportunity that you would like to have? What's on your short list, your bucket list?
Well, the mountain lions are super elusive. We have a good, healthy population of them here, and I photographed them a handful of times, which has been incredible. I'd love to have more opportunities with them, but realistically, I've had enough good experiences already that I shouldn't get greedy. Honestly, the thing that I'm missing great photos of that I'd love to get more of is wolves.
Mm.
And, most of the good wolf photos you see are coming out of Yellowstone. And in the Tetons, we have a population of them here, and you will see some good photos coming out of here for sure. But for whatever reason, my wolf magic hasn't really happened yet. And I photographed them a bunch, and I've made some decent images, but I'd love to really get a deep, good portfolio of wolves. And I think I need to that would be one of those things where I would need to dedicate some time just to go to Yellowstone and just do wolves. But that's for the greater Yellowstone. I think that's the one thing that so many people get really, really great wolf stuff. And for whatever reason, I just haven't had that line up for me. I have some good stuff, but nothing that's like, wow, great stuff there. So that's on my list. I'm always looking out for better wolf stuff.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't want better wolf stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's definitely not an easy animal to photograph. I've spent a lot of time in Yellowstone throughout multiple different seasons and over the last 10 years. And I probably have had 2 really close, good opportunities. And I don't think I capitalized on any of them, with everything that was going on. It's just the way it is, they are not an easy animal to photograph for sure. I mean, and then sometimes you see the people that, oh yeah, the whole pack came right down by the road and they sat there and they played and they were 50 yards away and and it's like,
yeah.
I've never had that kind of luck. But
that happened here about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was out of town, and all of a sudden my phone started blowing up. People were like, "You got to get up here to the wolves. They're right." People were getting full frame headshots of this black wolf with his yellow eyes and in the snow, and it was just like, yeah. And I was like, I'm not in town right now. I'm an idiot, but have a great time.
Yeah.
So it happens. It just timing's got to be right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
So what about your workshops? What all do you offer?
Well, the general setup for my work, I offer 2 different workshops, and they're both private. So I take 1 or 2 people max. So like a husband and wife or a couple of friends, people that know each other. And it's a private year-round, with some exceptions. If I'm in Africa or if I'm on vacation or whatever, I don't do them. But I'll do them year-round because there's always some different opportunities here. And I talk to the participants who are coming, and I try and get an idea of what they want to photograph and what they want to work on and what their skill level is. And it's really fun because everybody's so different in what they enjoy photographing and what their experience levels are. And so I get everything from complete beginners who have a kit camera and a kit lens to pros who are every bit as skilled as I am. And I'm comfortable teaching everybody, and I'm comfortable learning from everybody too. But sometimes it's just as simple as like somebody who's a really skilled photographer doesn't know the area, doesn't know the wildlife that we're going to be photographing. So they want, more of a tour and then some insight into the biology of the animals to help them understand how to photograph them and what some of their behaviors are so that they can anticipate, good opportunities and stuff like that, all the way to somebody who wants to get their camera out of automatic mode. And, basically like, I love taking pictures. I shoot in automatic mode and I want to get out of it. And I have no idea what that even means. And then they'll show up and I help them, navigate whatever level they're at. And it's really fun. I get people that like had never seen a wild bear before, and they start crying when they see their first wild bear and stuff. And, I have people that a lot of people who've traveled the world and done so many different workshops all over the world. And it's just different people. I've got amazing feedback from some of those people who have done all these workshops, and they get excited about learning something new. They've been like, I've done 10 workshops and no, I've never learned that before. That's amazing. And so I kind of take it as a challenge, like find something that I can give to these people besides just showing them around this cool place. And it's all of us are still, we're all learning. And I pick up stuff from my clients all the time, and then I can help pass that along to my next people, and get to meet a lot of cool people who are have similar interests and enjoy being out there and want to make nice photos and enjoy the area. But we do I do a 5-hour morning workshop, and then I do a 8-hour split day workshop. So we go out for 4 hours at sunrise, and then we take a midday break, and then we go back out for 4 hours in the evening. So we get kind of the both of the best times of the day in that 8-hour workshop. But I get, some people that just, like, I had a guy, Oma, he was here. That was his name, Oma. Hell of a great guy, but he came out a week or two ago. Mm-hmm. Whatever. He only shoots landscape, and all he wanted to do was work on some minimalist landscape stuff. And he'd seen in my feed, I do wildlife, but I love doing landscape, and I love, doing artsy fartsy creative stuff. And he saw some of my minimalist landscape work, and he's like, man, I want to go do some of that stuff with you out in the field. And so we didn't look for wildlife at all. All we looked for was like simple minimalist landscapes, which is, wintertime, snow's covering all the sagebrush, and you look for those opportunities where you can find, really simple, minimal, clean compositions. Mm-hmm. And we had a blast and made some excellent images. And that's the kind of specificity that you can get, whether you're with me or with a different, like, private, just you and one other photographer. If you can get that specific and say, this is all I want to work on today, let's do that. And we can go out there and have a blast. So it works really well, just to be able to give people exactly what they want, and not have any other stuff in the way. No other people saying, oh, but I want to go look for that big bull elk that's been hanging around over there. Or, there's just no conflicting ideas of what people want to do if there's a group, and that can be a problem.
Yeah, that probably saves you a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was going to ask you the question of why you prefer to just do the individual, one-on-one or two-on-one, and that answered it.
Yeah. And I think it's just so hard, because I do group workshops, the Yellowstone in Africa. And while they're awesome, the participants definitely don't get as, individualist instruction just by its very nature. I only have so much, mental capacity myself that I have a hard time keeping up with all those people and what all they're doing, and trying to make sure every single one of them is getting the photos they want. But when I'm there with one or two people, you can really dial it in and give them exactly what they want, make sure they're getting, see if they're really getting it, and help them till they can figure it out. So it works really well.
That's fantastic. We've been going about an hour. I don't want to get out of here without telling people where they can find you and where they can get information about your workshops and your YouTube channel, all those kinds of things. So we want to steer people your direction.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I'd appreciate that. The kind of the home base for all my stuff is my website, and that's at stevemattheis.com. Mattheis is spelled a little funny, so it's Steve, Steve, and then Mattheis.com. And that's you can get information. You can see some of my images there, get information about workshops and stuff like that. And then YouTube is kind of the that's the way most people find me, to be honest. I've got almost 20,000 subscribers now, which is a huge milestone. That's kind of shocking that ever happened.
Well, it's taken some effort, but yeah, you've been at it.
Yeah, I've been at it. And I started it. I had no ambitions. I just wanted to get comfortable in front of the camera, because I had a couple of opportunities to do some interviews about some photography related things. And I was so scared of being in front of the camera that I said no a few times just because I was scared. I was like, I don't know, I'm afraid of being in front of the camera. And so I decided that was dumb and that I needed to get comfortable in front of the camera. And so I started filming myself on these ridiculous kind of vlog style, just to try and get comfortable looking at a camera and talking. And then I was like, oh man, maybe I should just put out a video out there on YouTube. And then I did, and like 20 people watched it, and they're like, hey, that's pretty good. Do another one. And so it totally just grew in just a weird, organic way. But yeah, it's awesome now. I mean, to have 20,000 subscribers in the land of YouTube is nothing. But I think in my world, it's like, my God, that's amazing. How did that happen?
Right. It's significant. So, I mean, wildlife photography is such a niche audience, and that's what we find with the podcast. And so I think 20,000 is a solid number, because you're getting people who share a common interest and, take interest in what you may be able to offer them at some point too, or even just through the YouTube clips. So that is substantial for such a niche audience to have 20,000. And
yeah,
I mean, you're not short ever of opportunity. I can't stress that enough.
Right. Yeah. Well, I hope so. I mean, it's it feels substantial now, even though, compared to YouTube world where people get 10 million subscribers and stuff, it's nothing. But it feels substantial enough that like a guy like you would recognize me out in the field, And without that YouTube channel, you wouldn't have come up and said, hey, Steve, I enjoy your channel. Let's talk about this podcast. Like, right. Oh yeah, that's cool. So it's cool that those kind of things come from that, which is awesome. And the other cool thing is just being able to share, like sharing images on Instagram is cool. The image quality kind of sucks, and most people are looking at them on their phone, but it's awesome just to be able to share what you're doing and your work and your photography or your videos or whatever you're doing. It's like so gratifying. It's just nice to be able to share what you're working on, and that gives me an outlet that is honestly, it's grown to big enough to the point where I'll tell you a brief story. I wrote a little short story here a few months ago. I'm not a writer. Like, I'm a photographer and I make videos, but I wrote this story and I was like, man, I should send this out because it was kind of photography related, but I was afraid to do it because I was like, this isn't in my wheelhouse. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll just send it out. But then I go, oh God, but so many thousands of people are going to see this. And so it puts extra pressure on. So I was like, no, I'm not going to send it out there, because now it's not like I'm just sending it to 20 friends or to 50 people that know me that are going to go, oh, I really enjoyed your short story. Now the stakes are a little higher now. And that's kind of a weird thing that I didn't put it out until earlier this week. I finally sent it out there, and I put this short story out there, and a lot of people gave me really good feedback about it, which was great. But that's kind of a weird double-edged sword, that like now things are getting big enough now that I was worried about how people were going to react to this short story because I'm not a writer, and but anyway, it was great that some friends talked me into actually releasing that short story, and people liked it. And it was a lesson learned. Like, so what if thousands of people are going to see it? If they like it, great. They'll send you a nice message. If they don't, they're not going to say anything. Or if they do, screw them.
Yeah.
But there is a time where I kind of was starting to take things a little seriously. Like, oh, I can't do that because, too many people are going to see it, and it might not go over well. Well, that's what I learned was that that's kind of dumb. Like, so what if a bunch of people are going to see it? Just because more people see it, if they like it, great. If they don't, they already like your photography and your videos. So get over it. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of a weird thing that's happening with that YouTube channel, is that it's getting big enough now that people flag me down when I'm driving down the road, or I'll be taking a picture of a grizzly bear and somebody will walk up and tap on the car window or something at a bear jam. Be like, "Hey, are you Steve Mattheis?" And I'm like, yeah, hold that thought. Get shooting the bear or whatever. So it's some interesting stuff going on out there.
Yeah, I waited for you to be having lunch at least.
See, you're very thoughtful. I appreciate that.
No, well, Steve, we greatly appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on, and I'd love to do another one of these in the field someday when we're all over that direction and we have a little break in the activity. So maybe we'll have to do that if the opportunity arises.
Yeah, that'd be fun. And it might be fun to get out and shoot with you and get you on the YouTube camera as well. So.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Oh boy.
Yeah. You bet.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit like your buddy that came and visited, though. I'm not sure I'm really fond of being in front of the camera.
Well, he adapted really quickly, and I think you would too.
That's funny. I did see that. It didn't take him long to just go with it. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's really nice to meet you, Steve. We appreciate your time, man. It's been a fun conversation.
Yeah, thank you guys, and I appreciate the podcast too. I've been listening to a bunch of episodes since we met and got caught up on things, and you're doing a great job. And it's awesome to have like stuff like this. We spend a lot of time driving back and forth to locations and stuff. So having podcasts like this to listen to and to hear what other people are doing and other people's experiences, and just talking photography is an awesome way to spend some of that time while we're on the road. So much appreciation to you guys as well.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. Thank you for giving us your time, and until next time.
Yeah. Spring's coming quick. Spring's coming quick. We're going to do one in the field.
Yeah, it's coming on Tuesday. It's supposed to be 50 and raining.
Ron's done with winter.
In February. I can't believe it. It's crazy.
All right. Sorry, Ron.
I was trying to pull a Mark Raycroft and do the until next time. You've been listening to Wild and Exposed.
We got our windows down, driving down the 405, sing along to the radio. We're gonna make it someday, nothing's gonna get in our way. We will be the biggest band in town.